Cześć everyone, my name is Anita Ulikowska.
Hello, my name is Anna Siemionczko and we are your local foreigners. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about our university experiences. Everything from freshers to halls to lectures, and what surprised us again, what felt different, what felt new. And I think I'd like to start from the very beginning and start from the Freshers' Week, a very unique British thing, right? I'd never even heard about Freshers' Week before coming to the UK, and it was great fun for me. I've got a lot of stories, but yeah, did you know about Freshers' Week before coming to Cardiff University?
No,
or
I had no idea. To give you a little bit of a context, I applied very late in the process. In our first episode, we describe how we ended up studying in the UK, and we say that you have to apply quite early. So I applied very late. Everything was very last minute, and I felt like I didn't prepare for me leaving my home country and going to a different country at all. So I knew nothing about studying in the UK. All I knew was that I was going to study Spanish, and I knew which hall I was going to be living in because I had pre-selected it before, so I knew where to go. But when I arrived, I was definitely lost looking back now, but I think I didn't realize at the time. So, for example, I didn't know that there was a Freshers' Week. I mean, I kind of knew that, I kept hearing it, and I kept hearing the term freshers, and I knew that at some point I think I understood that it applies to me, but I think I didn't really realize.
What's everyone talking about?
I don't think I knew what the freshers was. Did you know?
Well, I knew because I was over-prepared because I was just counting my days.
So you actually...
I think I definitely read about it before somewhere. I knew...
Seriously?
What to expect-ish.
Really? God, you were...
But I was on it. I was on it for months.
So you knew that when you arrived... Okay, so actually, because I didn't experience the Freshers' Week, can you please explain what Freshers' Week entails?
Well...
Was it just a week, by the way?
Well, it is kind of the main week, I think, is when you just party and you just do fun things. Because you're meant to just be meeting everyone else. So you've got your students' union, again, it's quite a British thing.
Oh, yeah.
Organises all of the parties that... Once you're 22, you'd never... Actually, no. What am I talking about? Probably 20. You'd not even step into Students' Union. You'd not go back there. That's hell on earth. They're just drunk, crazy 18-year-old kids just in shagging each other and just drinking and everything's happening. Hell's open. So I think it's mostly a week, but then it's... Because you're talking about freshers... maybe not a month, but I feel a whole first year is kind of a long freshers year.
Yeah.
And because I remember one of the big differences between Poland and the UK was that first year didn't count towards anything. And that was drilled into our brains like a mantra from second years, from third years, which was the opposite in Poland. So remember, I didn't study at all my first year. I was just out all the time, 3-4 days, nights a week. I was just out. And I remember everyone saying, oh, but your first year it is 10% of your entire grade. You can literally barely pass it and you'll be absolutely fine. And then the hard work starts later. And I remember saying that to my Polish friends, and they had the exact opposite. They had to survive the first year. Yeah. The first year was basically Polish university's way of eliminating the bad seeds.
Yeah.
So everyone that doesn't survive the first year is just good enough to actually study. So it's super hard. There's no time for partying. And I actually really appreciate that time that I had with British uni, in Cardiff, because I dropped out of my degree and started again. So I almost had a double experience, the same experience twice. And that was very different because I was at a different age, and that was interesting as well. Because as an 18-year-old, I just threw myself into that life, into the freshers experience. When I was a freshers again in London, I've done that. So I had this that was just not fun for me. Like going to students' union parties, I've done all that, and I've done beyond that because I did it for second year as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already in a different place in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was partying, but in different places.
Should we actually explain what students' union is to anyone who hasn't studied in the UK?
It's a place of... Well, I think it covers a lot of grounds because it's definitely like a support institution.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's definitely officers, so those are elected every year for various... you'd have like a mental health officer or like welfare or I don't know, really like the specific roles within the students' union. So they organize all type of like kind of university students' life and events and help and obviously parties as well. That's part of it. But student media as well. So you have like Cardiff had a great student media that I was also involved in. So it was a student radio, student magazine, and student newspaper. So that's all part of students' union. So you can be really involved in your university life.
Yeah.
Beyond your studies.
And I think it's worth mentioning that it's a building. So it was like, it's an institution in this like sense of providing all support of all of those different planes that you explained, but it's also a place that you come to and you find all these support services there. And there's also a bar. The heart of the student union is the pub inside the student union. At least that was the case in Cardiff. That there was also like kind of like a bar and I think canteen. Like you get good food and obviously booze, the most important thing for most people there. And it was very cheap. And I must say again that now I understand the concept of what student union was, but I definitely, for the entire time that I was studying in Cardiff, I did not grasp the concept of student union. For me, that was the place where I went, where I needed to get some stationery, because there was a stationery shop.
There was a shop,
yeah. And I went there to... What else did I go there for? And I had to go there at the beginning, like in the first week, to sign up for some classes.
Wow.
Which I also didn't realize I had to do, because I remember almost missing that. Like, I definitely missed some introductory
Anita, I wish I was there. So I just take you under my wing and just take you places. I can't believe you actually... The only experience of students' union that you had was buying stationery.
And I did go to the bar maybe 3 times in my whole time there.
Okay, wow, yeah.
The judgmental look on Anna's face. I wish you could see that. The judgment look / surprise. And what else did I go there for? I really did not go to the student union. Maybe I was signing up for one course, extracurricular course one time, and I had to go. I basically went very rarely because I think I didn't understand what it was. Therefore, I didn't understand that maybe there are some benefits for me and maybe I could use it a bit more.
Oh.
I mean, it was it's very strange to explain because I knew the student union, everybody always talks about the student union.
Yeah,
and
that was the heart, that was the centre of that student life.
Exactly.
In your first year, because I guess in your second year you'd get more out of town, you'd not be living in halls, you'd be living somewhere else, and you're more like part of wherever you live rather than just university. But I could not live in halls again in that same way.
Yes.
Because it's very kind of communal living. Uh-huh. You're just with a bunch of 18-year-olds. Mm-hmm. There's halls parties going on all the time.
I think that's something quite different from how things are done in Poland.
Very much so, yeah.
In Poland, you would... So you tend to live they're called academic, which basically means student hall. And so I never studied in Poland, but obviously I had my friends studying at the same time as me. And I remember going to, I remember lots of stories from the student halls in Poland. And I actually went to a couple myself. And basically they're blocks of flats.
Ancient.
Asian. Very, I think normally
Really
they're
old.
quite close to the universities. I don't know whether they
So,
are
I'm not even
sometimes they
sure.
are. But, well, the thing about the Polish student halls is that basically you share a room with other people. And probably there are differences, but from what my friends have experienced, and I'm talking about not just one person, a group of people from different universities, they would share a room with, well, anywhere, I think, from like maybe one other person to like up to 4 or even more, depending on how big the room was.
I think my friend was sharing with 3 girls.
3
When I
girls.
stayed with her, and I thought that was just mental.
Yeah, right.
It's really odd. It's almost like nursery for students,
Yeah, in a way.
right?
And you don't have
Bizarre.
your own bathroom either, I don't think. I think it's like there's a bathroom per floor. At least the one that I went to. I'm pretty sure it wasn't
Maybe.
like there was
Yeah,
a
it was
bathroom
not in the
per
room.
room.
No,
It
yeah.
was like there was just like a communal bathroom, showers for I think the entire floor.
Yeah.
So basically, we're trying to paint a picture here for you that's
Picture of despair and
yeah, of
just misery.
well, like I mean, if you like before I came to the UK, I was expecting to live in one of those, and I wasn't scared by that prospect. I kind of like I accepted it because I knew that everybody does that. So I
Yeah.
knew I would probably live in one or flat share. So that's another thing in Poland that you can live in a student hall for the entire time you're studying.
And people really want to stay because it's so much cheaper. So
It is.
it's really, really cheap. And I know people just trying to find any kind of way to stay in halls, right? Whereas in Britain, it's just like, I've done halls, I'm out.
Yeah. And normally you would do 1 year on your first year in halls, and then you have to move because the university kind of like they keep it rotating because I guess maybe their spaces are limited. They don't have enough spaces for every single student studying there from all the years. So I remember I had to move out. I think you could stay if you were like working for the university. So I don't think it was even an option to stay. I might be wrong on this, and maybe there are different rules depending on the country you studied in. As in, like we studied in Wales, so maybe the English rules are different. But I'm pretty sure I had to move out. So that's the basics, and then I think also the experience of living in a student hall in Britain. So let's come to Britain now. We talked about Polish student halls. Let's come to Britain. The experience of living in a student hall in Britain can be very, very different depending on which student hall you live in, where it is located, how much it costs, when it was built, and who you're living with. There's so many different factors. So first, remind me where you lived, which one you lived in, and what it was like to live in a student hall for you.
Well, first of all, I think I'd like to say that in Cardiff in general, halls are really good. Like, from what I've heard from other people and their halls experiences, they were far more grim and, like, older and, like, they had to, like, share toilets as well per corridor. And I'm pretty sure I heard that from my London friends who lived in London halls, and I didn't because I was already moved in with my boyfriend at the time. And I lived in catered halls, so just
Catered.
and suite catered halls, which were like regular halls, so none of the like fancy, expensive ones.
Center? Like were they close to the campus?
Just I think pretty much most of them were quite like just a walk away, and yeah, it was funny actually with the catering because I couldn't cook at all when I moved over. Like I couldn't make anything, but I didn't really care much about food, so I'm mostly drunk. I didn't really eat, and when I ate, I had this philosophy of, I guess, maybe a classic 18-year-old, although that's very generalizing. I could just eat anything just to kill my hunger. So give me toast, some cheese, some ketchup. I think I must have had like pasta with ketchup once. My friend remembers that, so it probably happened. And luckily for me, we had catered halls, and it was actually really kind of funny memory of all of us, because we were friends with people in the flat below ours, gather outside the halls before 6 and all walk together to the canteen to have food.
Before 6 a.m.?
6 p.m.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like dinner time.
Really?
Because we had
That's
dinner, because we were catered,
mental.
so we had dinners like every day.
Included in the price of the...
Yeah.
You didn't have to pay for it?
No, like it was more expensive because of that, but yeah, it was part of the... Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And were there nice meals?
I guess, yeah, like canteen. Like, I mean, I couldn't cook, so I couldn't cook. Like, it was fine for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's just funny how, like, adult people gather outside and they just, like, walk together.
Please give me food.
It was very kind of American high school experience with a little tray and then you're grabbing all the stuff. Yeah, so that was...
So how many people... Were you living in a... So, did you have your own room? Did you share a room with everyone?
Yes, en suite. Like, so bathroom,
suite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bathroom and like one room to myself. And that was the case for my entire floor, which is about probably 7 people. And then downstairs was another like flat of 7. And then...
Yeah, so they were flats.
Yeah,
right?
they were flats, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a kitchen?
And we had a kitchen.
You did have
but
a kitchen.
But a really tiny kitchen as well.
Okay. And so you lived with 7 other people?
I think so, yeah. I think, it was about that number.
So I lived in Aberconwy Hall, and I lived... my hall was not catered, so we had a kitchen. So my hall was basically flats, which were... There were 5 girls, 5 or 6 of us living there. And I think 6, because we shared our bathrooms. So it was like 2 rooms and bathroom in between. Yeah. So you shared the bathroom with one other person, which was completely fine. I mean, like, I arrived and I was like, what? This is my room? Like, I have a whole room to myself? And there was a bathroom? And, like, because it was like an ensuite, but it just meant that there was, because you shared it, there were doors from both sides of the bathroom. So you actually could go into the other room if it was unlocked. And it blew my mind. I was so happy with it. I had my own bed, I had my own desk. I just remember how happy I was with that room and how surprised I was because, again, I had done no research, so I had no idea what to expect. And then the kitchen was massive. It was really big. And actually, I think someone came to clean it. I think once a week
we did,
someone...
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah, so you
what
didn't
What an easy life.
What an easy life. I could not believe it. I did cook, and I was actually...
I thought you would.
But I was cooking lots of vegetables. I remember at that time of my life, I barely ate any bread. And I remember this because my parents came in October and they bought a loaf of bread for me. I put it in the freezer, and I remember, I think, throwing away the last slice of that bread when I was moving out. So it took me a whole academic year to eat that bread.
So you ate very healthily in your first year.
So I would...
When everyone else was eating pasta with ketchup.
I was cooking a lot of vegetables. But it was like vegetables with, I don't know, like with a bit of butter or like a bit of like...
Yeah.
It was very plain food, but I guess it was relatively healthy. Not the healthiest. I did cook. I did.
Very impressive. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah.
For freshers. It's very... Yeah.
Yeah, but remember, I didn't get the concept of freshers. I think I didn't get the concept of being a student in general because all I did was study and cook food. And study again. Yeah.
I had a more like studies experience in King's when I studied film. So for as much as I partied and didn't study at all, and in Cardiff, it was more to do with the fact that I didn't really enjoy my degree. I didn't really care about it, and therefore eventually, apart from a few more art-focused, film-focused subjects that I kind of felt more passionate about and interested in, I didn't really care that much. So I think that's why I didn't really bother, and I was not at all academic. And then I studied King's, and that was very different. Like I still went out and still had a good time, but mostly focused on studying and getting it right and really, being sure I pay attention and learn. and that was my learning experience. So maybe this is a good way to lead us into the learning experience in Britain.
Yes. The learning experience in Britain was, again, I would say, potentially quite different from studying in, for example, Poland. Definitely in Spain. I can say that because I also had the opportunity to study in Spain. And again, my friends told me what it's like to study in Poland. So this is what I'm going to be basing my opinion on. So first thing I would say is the lectures. The lectures were quite... I remember going into... lectures would depend on the subject that you studied. So for example, I was in my first year, I was studying 3 subjects. And this is, again, really great about almost like 3 degrees, because in the first year you can choose, at least at that time you were able to choose 3 different degrees, and then at the end of it you drop, I think you can drop 2 or 1. So basically I came to Cardiff to study Spanish. In my first year, I studied Spanish, economics, and there was like this preparation for like non-English students. So it was like an extra subject. I have no idea why I took it, but so there was this like a filler subject. But basically, it meant that at the end of my first year, I could decide to expand my degree to Spanish and economics, because I was studying economics in the first year if I liked it, or I could drop the 2 extra subjects and just focus on Spanish related degree topics. So when I was studying economics, I remember like I would go into a different building, and some of the lectures were in these like massive halls. Again, like I felt like I was in an American movie, because you would have like literally it would fit like probably above 100 people. And you would have a lecturer at the front, like at that stage, and they would be giving lectures.
Is that different to anywhere else? I wonder actually. Because it's difficult actually. This one, I think this episode is quite difficult because we've only experienced that, right? So like to me, as we were talking about this, it seems so normal. It's like, of course, that's what we do in the UK, and everyone who would study in the UK, it's like, oh yeah, that's just lecture. But I actually wouldn't know like what the reality is in Poland or anywhere else.
Well, when I was in Spain, like some of the lectures would be just not that big. I think I remember like the scale of that lecture room blew my mind, and I was thinking I actually thought that was a very inefficient way to learn, because the lecturer would just go at his own pace or her own pace, and you didn't really have the opportunity to ask questions. So even if you didn't get something, you were stuffed.
Yeah, that's true actually.
And I was completely lost in those lectures. The first, because nobody really explained what you meant to do. Like you just come into this big lecture, you know, like
that's true actually.
You get a piece of paper with your schedule, and you know, I need to go to room 1.1. You go in and you're like, this is massive. What are we going to be doing here? And then you just sit down and you're like, okay, it starts. Am I taking notes? Am I meant to be participating? I was really lost.
Yeah. I guess that's like not clear at all. Especially that you could miss lectures.
Yeah.
I think in Cardiff you couldn't miss lectures. Like you had to attend seminars, but you couldn't miss lectures. There was no attendance. Like it's in King's, I think it was different. I think you could only miss up to 3. But like in Cardiff, I swear I missed lots of lectures. I'm pretty sure I didn't go to many.
Yeah, me too.
Because I would just be too busy sleeping.
Yeah.
And it's not really clear, and that note taking, and it's all a bit like, what am I exactly supposed to do with that? And then when it came to exam time, everyone just frantically exchanging notes, because you don't really have books, you don't really cover. It's very much independent of the. It's very different, definitely, from any high school experience, especially like ours in Poland.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also have the self-study, which my subject, and I guess yours too, was really reliant on. And that was also, I guess, I mean, it wasn't explained. And I know it's silly maybe to say that, but as someone who's just starting a completely new chapter in your life,
Yeah.
you
I understand. You want some guidance.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I felt that was unclear. And also, if you miss too many lectures, then I also didn't know, I think, in the beginning that it's kind of like lectures go hand in hand with the seminars, and in a sense that you have a lecture and then you
Discuss.
discuss and practice what you learned in the lecture in the seminar. And this is really like the key part, and then they would happen in much smaller groups. And but I was always lost in my economics. Like, oh my god, that traumatized me. I was so lost all the time, even in seminars which were smaller, but they were bad experience.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I don't remember ever participating in any seminars in Cardiff. But then again, I didn't really enjoy what I was studying. Apart from film, European film, that we did in the second year, I didn't really... But it was a funny kind of... Because you kind of could just get away with not doing anything. That was the funny part of... not really marked down. You could participate or not participate. You could always kind of like make something up. And then it probably would be rubbish. Someone would disagree. Like the worst thing that could happen to you, someone would disagree with you, and you go, "Oh yeah." Like you could just not study. I think from my friend's experience of Polish universities, there's no way you would get away with that. Because they ask you a question, they expect you to answer.
Yeah.
But there's even seminars. But like in a lot of exam papers, there were specific questions that you had to literally memorize what you're studying. You couldn't just kind of go, "Oh yeah, well, I agree with this guy because." This point seems okay, and it's like, and that's already an opinion, and that's so half-assed because you could just but it was different for me at King's though. Slightly Cardiff and King's were. I don't know. I feel like much more was expected of us, and just like the debate was much more engaged and a deeper level. I feel like say my politics seminars in Cardiff were very much just like. What do you think about this? Okay, next. What do you think about that? Okay, and it's not really, no one cared. But maybe that was my experience because I was a bit, not interested.
So I've got 2 points to make here. One is that I think it might be subject dependent too, because like getting away with stuff. Because when you study grammar, I mean Carlos was, oh my god. He would have killed you if you didn't study what you were supposed to know from the previous lectures, and he would constantly check it. So it was almost like that was more like my high school experience in a sense that we had, like regular like little exams before your big exam at the end of the semester. So you had to be prepared for... I mean, if you were not prepared for those lectures from grammar, you could be exposed quite easily. Because, you had to practice it, right? Like, you would come to the next lecture or grammar practice, and you would actually need to use what you learned before or say something what you learned. And similar for economics. We had to calculate stuff. So we had to know the formulas, we had to know the concepts, and... I just didn't know them constantly. So for me, that was different in that sense. And in terms of the debate, I think that's a very interesting thing about studying in Britain. Well, it's a British university with the subjects that we studied. Yeah. I think one of the two things that two very almost concrete skills that I took away from my degree at Cardiff University is the ability to speak Spanish, because that was the point of my degree and I did learn how to speak Spanish. And second was the skill of critical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's a major thing.
So in my lectures, I remember debates all the time. And it was really refreshing to be able to have a debate with people who were, with other students who you could really see that they also had their own opinions. Because in my previous educational experiences, if you had your own opinion, you were almost like shamed,
Yeah,
for voicing
definitely.
it. It's like, oh,
It's a huge like stigma. It's a big thing, and I didn't realize how big it was until pretty much my second year at King's. So arguably my fourth year in total. Because say like the final exams, like your A levels equivalent, and I'll in Poland matura exam, and I'll never forget how Polish literature is judged, and to me, because I'm more of a humanist, so that to me is absolute crime against art and literature. And so for people who don't know, you're expected to write 2 essays on two extracts from books or a poem or etc. It's a short story, and then you almost have to like tick keywords. You have to or things I need to address. So there's no room at all for your free interpretation of the text. However, just that you would add, just you justify it. And it's almost mathematical, and it's just so wrong because then you're just so focused on just getting your exam right rather than really understanding what you're reading. And remember, I drank my way through my time in Cardiff. I didn't really care much, so I didn't really have any academic experience there. And I arrived in King's and I started writing essays. And I remember lecturers coming to me with their feedback and going, "Yeah, but what do you think about this guy's opinion? Like you've quoted him and you've quoted her, but where's your stance in this?" And I remember thinking, "But how much like?" You're asking me to comment on these guys? Like they've written books about this subject. Like, what can I say about that? That to me at the time seemed just like I'm just a little student. Like, how can you ask me for my opinion? Like, I can't equal. Like, I'm trying to collect really good points that I think are really good. And then every single time, they would just ask me to express my opinion. And eventually, I kind of started to be more brave with it, and I did it. And got better grades, and I found just general subject of theory, because I studied film studies, really interesting, really challenging. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually learning something, not just memorizing information. And then in my second year, I studied experimental avant-garde film. And
that's at King's.
That's at King's, yeah. And I remember I had this brilliant lecturer. She was absolutely fantastic. And had like just really varied and amazing curriculum of, say, once you'd have just a film of just sound and colour for an hour that you'd have to watch. There was nothing, it's just sound and colour, different sound and colour. And people obviously would be falling asleep, and she would just plough through this curriculum. It was really fascinating. And one of them was a film exhibition in the gallery space. So it was a film as a gallery space piece. And I remember that because I had to write an essay about it, the experience we had in one of the galleries. And I had a meeting with her, and I was trying to explain how there's very little said about it, and I'm trying to aid myself with this scholar and that scholar and that scholar. And she just but she almost like metaphorically shook me. She didn't physically shake me, but she verbally shook me and just said, like, look, but what do you feel when you see this? This is why. And first I need to know this, and then justify it, because you've got enough academic knowledge to justify what it kind of elicits in you, what kind of response it kind of gives you, or elicits in you. And again, there was that kind of specifically foreign perspective, and something that I was equipped with, that almost lack of understanding of what she was asking of me. And that was revolutionary, because after 3 years of doing this and people really grinding that critical thinking, and most of all my own thinking, and being able to justify my opinion in an eloquent, well-read kind of manner, that was the biggest education of it all. And I'm so grateful for it, because I know that my friends back home never really had that, because no one really cared. No one, like my lecturer at King's, sat me down and go, I don't care about these people. Like, I know what they're saying. I've read all these books. I'm not interested. I'm interested in what you want to say about this. I'm interested in what can you bring, what new can you bring into this debate? And that was always encouraged. And that's at the very heart of any academic studies and learning. And that's what's absolutely brilliant about studying in the UK, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I've got very similar experience, and I actually remember myself being quite. I was voicing my opinions when I was at school back in Poland, and I remember always like wanting like to fight with this like no, I don't want to be thinking in this very prescripted way. I want to tell you what I really think. And I would always do that. But when I came to the UK and I was studying at university in Cardiff, that was taken to a whole new level. Because like you, I felt like, who am I to comment and disagree with experts on, like experts in that specific field that I was learning about or writing about.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind that I'm not expected to just like create a collage of different opinions, but bring that new, fresh perspective. And that was very challenging to be like, oh, okay, so what else can I say about this? Like, do I actually agree with this person? Do I not agree with them? And if I don't agree, why do I not agree? So there was like, it's created in me that skill of conversation, not only with other people, but also with myself. And that's seeking truth, my voice. And I thought that was absolutely probably one of the best experiences of studying at the British University. It was revolutionary for me too.
I think we'd be very different people if we had not done that.
I think so.
I think it really changed. Yeah, I think that dialogue with yourself and questioning things and the way you can look at media and the world in general.
Right.
If I had not had that, and I'm pretty sure I would not have had that in majority of the universities in Poland.
Yeah.
So it's just different style of education.
Yeah.
I would just be very different, very differently thinking human.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And also the selection of subjects was quite I remember I had some subjects which also really totally changed me and my perspective on a few things. For example, that one time we had I took a subject in Spanish history, but it was perspectives on the Spanish history, which meant that basically we learned about a specific episode from the Spanish history, the Spanish Civil War, which you always talk about when you learn about Spanish, but we learned about it from different perspectives, from the perspective of the winners, of the victors, of the defeated, of people in between. And I remember thinking, what the hell? Why is this the first time in my life that I'm realizing that history is always taught from, it should be taught from different perspectives. It's not just one linear version of
subjective.
Truth. It's super subjective. And it was, again, that's I'm really grateful for my university years to open up some of like these pockets in my brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just like giving me a new perspective on life, really.
Yeah. Okay. So before we wrap this up, having touched on many different aspects of student life in the UK, as like a finale to our episode, let's talk about the finale of our student life, which is graduation, which is such a different experience again to the one our friends had in Poland, and how it felt to graduate in Britain.
For me, it felt, well, first of all, I was elated because I got the grade that I wanted, and I knew that my parents were really proud and everybody was really happy. I was obviously really happy with myself because I felt like I really worked my ass off. I dedicated my entire 4 years of my life to that degree. So it paid off. I was really happy. And then obviously it's like I actually quite like the idea of the British graduation because it adds this, like those fireworks and sparkles to the end of those years, which for many people are quite hard. So it feels really nice that you have this day when you can be appreciated and you can celebrate your sweat and tears. And it's a little bit like what you see in American movies, I guess. We went to this theatre, I think, and I think you can invite up to 2 people, I think.
Yeah, there's everything in limit.
Yeah, exactly. So you can have
it's
2
always
guests.
Controversial.
Before you go into the hall or the theatre, you have to pick up the costume, the
gown.
Yeah, the gown, exactly. I think you have to pre-order it as well.
Yeah. It's crazy money for literally wearing it for maybe 3 hours and then you have to return it.
Yeah.
It feels good though with a gown.
It
the gown
does.
is that's what it's all about.
It is.
And I think that's the envy of definitely Polish family and friends of, because it's such a celebration, such an event, and then you've got a gown and a hat.
And the hat, exactly.
Hat.
And it's fitted, if they fit you with, so before you go to the theatre, you go to this place where you pick up your gown, and they actually help you put it on.
Yeah, it's like a proper...
Yeah, so you feel for a moment, you feel like you're this, queen, and they,
it's very
official,
you. Very proper.
Yeah. And everybody obviously is beautifully dressed and they probably they had been looking for their dresses for graduation for months before. And then you go into the theatre, right? And
then they read your name because you kind of queue up and then you have to just get on stage. And I hate that. I hate being in the spotlight. So I kind of I really hated going because I always think I'll just trip or I'll just walk funny. I really do actually. I do walk funny. And then just kind of, shake their hand, take your thing and go off the stage.
Yeah. It's actually really boring because...
They're just reading names for
they read names and you watch tens, if not hundreds of people before you go up on the stage, receives, the paper, I think, the graduation paper, shake someone's hands and you go back to where you were.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that was a really boring bit. But then at the end, you meant to obviously gather with your friends and throw your hat. I did see many people go back in front of the City Hall because it's a beautiful building in the centre of Cardiff, and have photos taken there. So they would gather up and they would throw the hats up in the air. So just to top it off with that very English / American experience.
I love that. I love the fact that it's a big celebration because my brother only has a photo of him in a suit outside his uni holding a diploma just because my mom took it. There's nothing. You just pick it up and it's nice to kind of feel that sense of achievement because it's hard work. I mean, life in general is hard work and life after uni is much harder, but at the time it feels so monumental.
Yeah.
And you really put your heart and soul into it, otherwise you wouldn't bother. And it's great to have that celebrated, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so I really enjoy the idea of graduation from British University. It's such a joyous event.
It is, and parents just lose their shit. They're all over it. They'll take a million photos, being really embarrassing, but also really lovely with it and cute.
Exactly. This is how things should be done. Graduation, proper graduation.
Definitely. I feel like...
Party.
To summarize this episode, I would risk saying that Britain has got it just right. From the moment of freshers, when you party and have fun, I mean by design.
By design.
By design, it is from the moment you arrive, you just party, have fun, no one really cares, you're 18, great experience. Then you study in a very challenging environment where they actually encourage you to critically think about stuff, and you actually learn something beyond your subject. You learn just a general skill. You actually learn to think properly and be an intelligent human in the world. Hopefully that will be the goal, and then you have an awesome graduation. So as foreigners in the UK, as this is the subject of our podcast, I feel like we've really lucked out, and I'm so grateful that we had this formative experience of our lives in the UK and nowhere else.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's just a shame that it's so expensive.
It is very expensive, yes.
I think if I was to do it again, I would really think about it, because I'm not sure whether it's worth the money.
We'll pay it off sometime.
After we die.
In our 80s, maybe we'll be free of debt.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in debt.
I've actually already paid off mine.
Okay. On this note, I'm too cross to continue this.
I'm so sorry.
Podcast.
Okay.
You know, like everyone who's listening and went to university in Britain will actually hate you. Please don't hate Anita. She's still lovely, although we hate her a little bit for that.
Just a little bit. But instead of hating me, please leave comments below and tell us about your experience of studying at university. And correct us if we made any mistakes or maybe some...
Absolutely. Feedback's always very welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So it was lovely to speak to you again, and we will catch up next time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to next episode.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.